Hey, it's Rachel Cooke, your modern mentor. I'm the founder of Lead Above Noise, a firm specializing in activating workplaces, helping leaders bring simplicity, ease, and big, giant results to the forefront. First, a loving reminder that your questions and curiosities are the fuel behind the show. So if anything workplace related has been on your mind, then leave me a voicemail with your question at 201-677-8113. And I may just answer it on a future episode. Just be sure to let me know if you'd like me to keep your name anonymous. So these days, the workplace, whether in person or virtual, it just isn't doing a lot for us. Studies show that employee engagement globally is really down. Reports of joy, of excitement, these are all down, and it's overwhelming. Today, I am going to give you the quick solution to all of these challenges. I'm kidding. No, I am absolutely not going to do that. But I am going to remind you of this. All of these big challenges, engagement, joy, connection, they all live on a dial, not a switch. And our goal as leaders or as citizens isn't to flip a switch from down to up, but rather to make progress every day, turning that dial just a smidge. And one of the most powerful strategies we all have at our fingertips is generosity. One of my personal heroes, Adam Grant, talks a lot about givers and takers in the workplace. And his research shows that givers, perhaps surprisingly, tend to be more successful than takers, but with an important caveat. In a Harvard Business Review article, he says, givers need to distinguish generosity from 3 other attributes: timidity, availability, and empathy. In other words, acts of generosity should be strategic. They should have intent. It is not generous to give away all of your time and energy, but to do so meaningfully. I've seen a lot of small moments of generosity in recent months, and today I'd love to share 4 that I think really pay off for everyone. The first is honor your promise to follow up. Have you ever been in a bad spot, maybe even felt a little bit desperate about something, and you reach out to someone for help? Like you're without a job or you're deeply unhappy in yours, and a friend has promised that they will make an introduction or give you feedback on your resume, and you leave that conversation feeling grateful and excited for the help they've promised. And you sit tight and you wait, because this is the thing you need most right now. Meanwhile, that other person moved on to their next meeting, and hard truth here, friend, they have already forgotten about their promise to you. Listen, I really believe that most of us are mostly good, but we're busy and we're chasing our own priorities. So taking the time to do the thing we've promised to somebody else, even if there doesn't seem to be anything in it for us, but it's something that feels important to them, it's one of the greatest acts of generosity we can offer. But when you make that commitment, do what you must to remember to do it. Schedule it, drop it in your bullet journal, or tell yourself you cannot have that next Tootsie Roll until you've done it. But create the accountability to make it happen. And also, if you know you're not going to be able to do it or do it right away, then just be honest with the other person. I just sent out a feedback survey to a number of very busy, very senior clients of mine. And immediately, one of the CEOs replied to me saying he's at an offsite this week, but he has already booked time in his schedule to complete it for me next week. His generosity is delightful, and he's managed my expectations. So how can you do the same? Next, tell someone there's spinach in their teeth. So if you're at lunch with someone, then literally tell them if they have spinach in their teeth. But in the office, this is a little more of a metaphor. Sometimes we don't mention the spinach, the awkward thing, because it's uncomfortable for us. But if we don't lean into the discomfort, then some poor fool is walking around with spinach in their teeth all day. So what's something you've observed about a colleague that you haven't mentioned out of your own discomfort, but you know they would benefit from hearing? Maybe someone on your team has a reputation for taking way too long to make their point, and so people avoid inviting them to meetings. Maybe you know a colleague was passed over for a promotion because another leader expressed concern about their communication style or their trustworthiness or their ability to engage a team. Whatever it is that you know or have observed, even if it's uncomfortable for you, consider letting the other person know. I just think we all deserve to know if something is holding us back. How else can we take steps to change it? Next, exclude someone from a meeting. So I try to do yoga on the regular. I try. But if I'm honest, I have some pet peeves about it. Like in a yoga class, we're all supposed to love and welcome each other, which sounds lovely, until 2 minutes after class has started and someone comes in late and can't find a spot. And the teacher says, "You're welcome, come on in, we find space for everyone here." So we cram mats together and 5 minutes later I have a stranger's foot in my face during Warrior 3. I get it. The idea of including everyone is lovely, but in practice, it isn't always. In yoga class, everyone's experience gets a little bit worse when we over-invite people in. Inviting people in generally feels like the generous thing to do, but sometimes it's not. Next time you're scheduling a meeting, before you hit send, take a minute and ask yourself, is anyone on this list that really doesn't need to be here? Who doesn't have a specific contribution to make? Who can just be informed after what the outcomes were? Because these days we are all overwhelmed, and the gift of 30 to 60 minutes of time back can be the most generous thing we can offer. And finally, show someone you remembered a thing. Earlier this year, someone reached out to me on LinkedIn and asked for a 20-minute chat. We hopped on a Zoom and I told her how nice it was to meet her. She told me we'd actually met once before. It had been years ago when she joined the company I'd been working for at the time. I had been one of the many people she met as part of her onboarding plan. Turns out she was reaching out now because in that one conversation, I'd given her a piece of advice that she'd held onto and implemented many times since. I was kind of speechless. I didn't recall the conversation, but the advice did sound like a thing I might have said. People can say all sorts of lovely things to you and about you, but sometimes the loveliest thing they can say is just that they were listening to you. Maybe someone recommended a book or gave you a bit of advice on how to present to senior leaders, or they mentioned a hobby or a favorite food. Bringing that conversation up at some point later, whether or not you read the book or heeded the advice or tried the food, just to let them know you were listening, it can really make someone's day. When we remind people that their words and ideas have value, we encourage them to continue giving that value. And there you have it. I'm hoping your spirit of generosity is feeling awake and ready to rock. Now go do something lovely today. Join me next week for another great episode. Until then, visit my website at leadabovenoise.com if your workplace could use an activation boost. A talk, a workshop, a pulse check, you choose. You can find Modern Mentor on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Find and follow me on LinkedIn. Thanks so much for listening and have a successful week. Modern Mentor is a quick and dirty tips podcast. It's audio engineered by Dan Farabend. Our director of podcasts is Brandon Getchis. Our podcast and advertising operations specialist is Morgan Christensen. Our digital operations specialist is Holly Hutchings. Our marketing and publicity assistant is Davina Tomlin. And Cameron Lacey is our marketing contractor.